Look up at the night sky tonight. Does our moon seem just a little too perfect to you? Well, in this explainer, we're unraveling a cosmic mystery that's literally going to challenge everything you thought you knew about the universe. We're digging into evidence hidden right in plain sight, recorded on clay tablets thousands of years ago, and shockingly enough, backed up by modern space exploration.
So what if the moon isn't what we think it is? I know. It sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. But this idea, it's actually rooted directly in clay tablets from over 4,000 years ago. Most of us just brush these ancient texts off as primitive religious myths. But what if we've been misinterpreting a highly advanced technical record this whole time?
Okay, let's jump right into the math. Specifically, an impossible anomaly, the 1 to 400 ratio. I want you to keep this exact proportion locked in your head as we go, because it's the master key to an astronomical puzzle that even experts admit just shouldn't exist naturally.
See, the ancient Sumerians wrote something absolutely fascinating. Those who from heaven to earth came. They called them the Anunnaki. And they didn't claim to just casually figure out the universe on their own. No, they explicitly stated this complex cosmic knowledge was handed directly down to them.
Section 1. The impossible celestial body and that 1 to 400 anomaly.
All right, the math here is honestly staggering. Think about this for a second. The sun is exactly 400 times larger than the moon in its diameter. But here is the absolute kicker. The sun is also exactly 400 times further away from the Earth than the moon is. This creates the exact perfect geometric proportion you need for a total solar eclipse. When you look up from Earth, the apparent size of the moon perfectly covers the apparent size of the sun, down to a fraction of a percent.
To put that into perspective, our solar system is incredibly massive, right? Jupiter has dozens of moons. None of them create perfect eclipses. Saturn has over 100 moons. Same exact story. Our moon is literally the only one in the entire solar system that creates this perfect geometric effect. It's an anomaly that astrophysicists themselves admit has a natural probability of essentially zero. It is just way too perfect to be random chance.
Now the Sumerians, they didn't buy the coincidence excuse at all. Their text suggests this wasn't an accident, but a very deliberate positioning. They claim the celestial body was placed precisely for 4 distinct reasons: to stabilize the Earth's axis, to regulate the ocean tides, to create those perfect eclipses as a visible demonstration, and ultimately to prove its position isn't random. It's almost like a giant cosmic billboard screaming, "This is not an accident."
Which brings us to Section 2, Advanced Sumerian Astronomy. Knowledge way before its time.
Look, we have to understand who we're talking about here. The Sumerians laid the absolute bedrock of human civilization. We're talking about a society that invented writing, advanced metallurgy, the wheel, and the very first legal codes. Oh, and if you've ever wondered why there are exactly 60 seconds in a minute or 360 degrees in a circle, that's their base 60 mathematics system, and you're still using it today.
But then you see this massive timeline anomaly. The Sumerians actually mapped the ice giants, Uranus and Neptune, thousands of years before modern telescopes could spot them. Uranus wasn't officially discovered until 1781, and Neptune in 1846. You literally can't see them with the naked eye. Yet over 4,000 years ago, they recorded their exact colors and orbital characteristics. How is that even possible?
And their mathematical precision was terrifyingly accurate. I mean, they calculated the exact duration of a lunar month with a margin of error of less than half a second compared to what we measure today using highly advanced atomic clocks. These weren't just folks casually gazing at the stars. They possessed a hyper-advanced understanding of time and space.
Let's move on to Section 3, Ancient Orbital Mechanics, or Physics Etched in Clay.
So, when you actually translate these clay tablets, you find concepts describing complex orbital mechanics millennia before scientists like Kepler or Newton formalized them. They described what modern science calls tidal locking. In plain English, they knew the moon spins at the exact same speed it orbits the Earth. That's the whole reason we only ever see one side of the moon, while the dark side stays totally hidden. They actually described gravity as a literal anchor holding it in this perfectly calculated path.
And here is where it gets really wild. Astonishingly, they didn't call the moon a rock. In their texts, they used the exact same word that they used for purpose-built cargo ships navigating their rivers: a vessel. To the Sumerians, the moon was an engineered craft, complete with vast internal chambers. They recorded that its interior was not what its exterior suggested, and that it was unnaturally light for its size.
Section 4, Ringing Like a Bell. The Apollo Crash Tests.
So the ancient texts claimed the moon was hollow, something humanity obviously couldn't test until 1969. Let's break down the Apollo 12 mission. On November 20th, 1969, NASA deliberately crashed a lunar module stage right into the moon's surface. It hit with a force of 1 ton of TNT. They expected a brief, localized seismic event. Instead, the reverberations grew stronger and the moon rang like a bell for an absolutely staggering 3 hours and 20 minutes.
The results were so baffling, they just had to try it again. With Apollo 13, they repeated this impact test with an even larger thruster. This time, the moon resonated for over 4 hours, causing a NASA mission control scientist to actually go on record declaring it reacted just like a metallic gong. This was entirely unprecedented and completely unexpected for a natural planetary body.
Basic physics explains exactly why this is so weird. If you have a solid rock and you hit it, like smacking a giant boulder with a hammer, it instantly absorbs and dampens the seismic waves. You just get a dull thud. But a hollow metallic shell? That rings continuously, bouncing the vibrations around. The moon acted exactly like a hollow shell, perfectly mirroring what those ancient tablets claimed when they said it resounds like a bell.
Section 5. An intentionally placed vessel. The grand hypothesis.
Now you might be thinking only ancient mythmakers believe this, but in 1970, 2 Soviet scientists thoroughly analyzed the moon's unnatural density, its seemingly hollow interior, and its hyper-precise orbit. They boldly published a paper asking, is the moon the creation of an alien intelligence? They basically concluded it exhibits characteristics way more consistent with an artificial satellite than a natural body. They essentially arrived at the exact same conclusion as the Sumerians, just using 20th century telemetry data instead of clay tablets.
Look, the dominant modern theory we are all taught is the giant impact hypothesis, that a Mars-sized object smashed into Earth, breaking off a chunk that became the moon. But this completely fails to explain critical data points. It fails to explain the moon's perfectly circular orbit, which absolutely should be elliptical if born from a chaotic collision. It fails to explain the completely mismatched mantle composition between the Earth and the moon. And it completely fails to explain why the moon is disproportionately massive compared to any other planet-to-moon ratio in our entire solar system.
Adding to this whole mystery is a chilling cultural memory found all across the globe. We are talking completely disconnected cultures, from Tibet to indigenous African tribes to South America. People who had zero contact with one another, all sharing myths of a time before the moon. They speak of an ancient time when only stars illuminated the night until the moon was brought or arrived in the sky. It really makes you ask, are these just shared fantasies or a collective human memory of a very real event?
So, taking all this in, and keeping in mind their impossibly accurate astronomical calculations regarding planets they couldn't even see with the naked eye, we are left to wonder, were the ancients merely writing fiction, or were they transmitting the ultimate cosmic truth? If they were dead right about the exact length of the lunar month and the existence of Neptune, is it so impossible that they were right about the moon itself being an intentionally placed vessel? I'll leave you with that to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.